So yeah, I will do a presentation, and then I'm happy to have like discussions with you or answer your questions. As I guess, I mean, you're coming from different fields, and you may be at different stage in your project development. So funding may be needed in different ways. So what I'm going to say may adapt yet, or maybe for future needs you will have. I'm trying to give you kind of a almost exhaustive view of what kind of fundings right now studios can have. So can we start? Oh, okay, doesn't want to move. Here it is. So yeah, before we start, a quick introduction. I mean, thank you, Jorge. Fran, sorry. We had a great introduction. Just to say that, yeah, I've been 20 years in the business. I think what is interesting is I started working with big publishers. So I was kind of managing Tom Clancy brand. I'm sure you guys know a lot of Tom Clancy games, so like, you know, Ghost Recon, Splinter Cell, and so on. I was directly leading their brand strategy, based in Paris, but I was then managing directly the studios in Raleigh, North Carolina in the US, Paris, and then Bucharest in Romania. I also worked previously for Disney, Disney Interactive Studios, still in the video game. And so what is interesting there is was what, you know, big publishers want to do and what is their strategy. With Ubisoft having a strategy about a lot of in-house development, very little external development, and what we call third-party development, so working with outside studios. So do it a bit, but very little. And Disney, what was very interesting when I was there was about how to structure it as a publisher. So moving from a business which was a licensing business, where Disney was signing with other company like EA, Ubisoft, Activision, wherever, I mean, of this world. So sending the license to a business where they were actually publishing, so developing with external developers. So that was kind of more kind of what we can call work for hire, where they were kind of saying, okay, we need to make a game on, I don't know, Kingdom Hearts is a bad example, so Kingdom Hearts is another strategy, but let's say we need to make a game on, I don't know, on Tron, or we need to make a game on Desperate Housewives, or any kind of other Lion King, any big IP. They were kind of looking at a studio that can develop that, signing with the studio, providing assets to the studio, and then obviously paying the studio on a milestone basis. So that's kind of work for hire, which I will talk about a bit later on, which is clearly also a way to kind of finance your development. May not be kind of the way you're looking for, because you may have your own project, but still working for someone else's project is a way to create a studio, to grow as a studio. What happened is in 2009, so about now 11 years ago, I decided to create my own company because I've seen that within this industry, I mean, it's fast growing industry with the online distribution, there were a lot of small to medium sized studios that wanted actually to kind of, well, they could sell, they could develop and they could sell their own games. But what they were liking was how to finance those games and how to kind of publish those games. As it didn't have to go anymore through the traditional physical distribution, it was easier in terms of means of selling, but they didn't know how to do it. So that's kind of what I've been doing since 2009, working with a lot of studios in Europe, actually, in the US, in Japan. Like typically Grasper Manufacturer is a studio based in Japan. I mean, this is a studio I was working with Suda-san, so some of you may know Suda-san. At that time, obviously working a lot with Tequila Works and helping those studios to kind of shape up, grow, and publish, self-publish, co-publish, so work on different publishing models in order to kind of develop their own project. So not so much about work for hire, but mainly about developing their own project. That's been on kind of the PC and console side. And also I did this on the mobile side. You may not know Cyber, which is a Danish studio, but you may know Subway Surfer, which is the most downloaded game ever. I think now we are reaching 2.5 billion downloads worldwide. So this is huge. And actually this is made by a studio, which, I mean, now they're a bit more, but at that time we're 40 people. So my role was kind of how to make sure that, you know, we can sustain the revenue on this project. So talking about funding and financing, I want to put this into a context because good, okay, we need money, you need money to kind of develop your project, but it's not just about money. It's part of a process, and the process it's part of a game design. So obviously if you don't have good designers, if you don't have any game ID, funding. I mean, we don't care about funding because this is clearly where it starts. Where it starts is, what is the game about? What is the IP? What kind of breakthrough content you're going to create? That's key. So game design is really at the center. Based on that is obviously the funding, but also the production. If we provide you money, but you're not able to develop the game on time, on budget, you don't know where you go, everybody is going to freak out. I mean, it's not going to work on your side because yes, you're going to have the money, you're going to start, but you're not going to be able to end up the project. And for the people that are going to fund you, that's not going to work. They're going to be freaked out as well. Like, okay, I'm going to give you, I don't know, 500,000, 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, 20 million. And you're not telling me how you're going to use it, how many people you're going to have, what is going to be your man-months cost, what kind of project, what kind of money you need for outsourcing. So production is key. In order to convince to get funding, you need to have a good project, but you also need to have a good project management where you know exactly how you're going to use this money, when. And then the publishing, of course, if we fund a project, is to say, well, we need to sell. So this is something which has two sides. One side, which is linked to game design, which is when you start thinking about a game, and this is a game for a market. If you want to make a game for yourself, great, do it in your garage, but that's not, I mean, people in the business are not interested in that. What we are interested is also games that, that have market, that kind of going to reach a market. So you have to think all the time when you are game design, okay, I'm making this game, but who am I making this game for? What is my market? I don't know, I want to get to do a very kind of deep RPG kind of title. Okay, what does it mean? How many people are kind of playing those games? What are the key comparables? I can look at, I like this kind of RPGs, this is great games. That's the kind of type of comparable game I'd like to do. That gives us an idea of what is the potential. Okay, we can see that maybe it's your first game, it's your second, it's your third game, but if we compare it to game A, B, C, okay, that's kind of potential that the game has. So that means that you're coming to me with a budget of 5 million, but I can see that the game has a potential of, I don't know, 10 million sales, 20 million sales. Okay, that makes sense. And then we can talk seriously about funding. All this, I put the team at the center because this is key. Whatever you do, obviously game design is because you have the right people and who have the right ideas on that. Production is because you have the right people. Publishing is the same. And funding, it's about building the trust. And people are going to trust you if you have a strong team and a team that we can believe into. So this is really, really important and not to forget. So why do you need funding and what is at stake? That's a question you need to ask yourself before going for any funding. First is like, okay, I need money, what for? And I need it like short-term or long-term. So I need it short-term because, okay, I got this idea of a game and hey, I need to hire people. I don't have the money to pay those people. How do I do? Okay, I need to finance the game right away. I need to, I don't know, tech. I want to, well, now, I mean, with Unreal, I mean, you don't really have to pay a license if you're kind of small enough. But I don't know, I need to buy some text. I need to kind of rent an office. So you really need to kind of define what are your needs. And that can be kind of more long-term needs, which is, okay, I've got now all the budget to kind of run my game and develop my game for the 9 coming months. But after 9 months, what happened? Nobody's paying me anymore. I've got a gap. I cannot pay the people. What do? You don't want to lose your team. You want to keep your team. So you have to kind of plan ahead. But before you go to look for any fund, it's key, it's very important that you know why you need this money for. Also, it's to understand what you need. I mean, it's not only about money. It's also, I mean, maybe you need a publishing structure. Okay, you're going to develop your game. Who is going to publish it? Are you going to self-publish or are you going to work with a publisher? And we're going to see it later. A publisher can be typically a type of partner for also funding, but that is bringing a lot more elements to that, like QA, localization, distribution, and so on. What do you need? Maybe you need distributors as well. Okay, you're going to make your game. You're going maybe to do it physical or digital. On which platform are you going to distribute? You need to kind of work with those platforms, build those relationships. That's kind of the relationship I put here also with first parties. You know, is your game going to be PC only? Are you going to distribute on Steam? Are you going to be also PlayStation, Xbox? Whatever, you start to need to build those relationships because it's not only about money, it's about making sure that your game can reach an audience and can be distributed. And it's a way to also reassure anyone that is going to kind of put money into your game that, you know, you are serious about it, you know all the process and you know where you're going to go. And therefore I'm like, okay, if I put money, I know there's going to be some revenues attached to it. So I can trust you, I'm ready to put the money into. And very important also, what do you want to give away or not give away? IP rights, that's always a huge discussion, obviously with investors and obviously with publishers. I create a new game, I create a new IP, intellectual properties. Am I ready to kind of give this IP, give away to a publisher, or I absolutely want to keep it because I want to grow it, and when I grow it, it has a value, and it will have a value for my company that can be also very beneficial later on when I need money for another project. Am I ready also to give shares of my company? This is my company, I've got 100% of the company, and we're going to see it later on about equity. I may have some people investing in the company, bringing money that obviously is going to help me to make games. Okay, I want to do that, or no, I want to keep the full control of my company, so I don't want to sell any share. So you need to kind of ask yourself all those questions about what you really want to do and how you want to do it before going into any kind of funding. I'm still about, so before looking for funding, and I will go to funding. So building on what I just said is, okay, you need to have a clear idea of, basically there are two elements you can fund. You can fund at the company level or you can fund at the game level. Looking at the company level, you need to kind of know what you want to do with your company. Is it like, okay, I want to build this game, develop this game, sell these games, and then that's okay, I'm leaving, I will do something else. Or, oh, I have this idea that, I don't know, I want to become a leader in RPG, in RTS, in shooters. I have this vision of where I want to go. This is very important. Very important that you kind of materialize it, put it in a document, what we call a business plan. And okay, you're not there yet, but people can see that there is clearly an idea of where you want to do. Linked to that is also a timeline. Okay, if you want to make like a AAA game, 50 million development next year, and you're just starting your studio, doesn't make any sense. But there could be, okay, this is kind of how I want to build the company and where I want to go. And the big question is, okay, I want to go there, but with whom? Because actually, you know, games is about people. That's the people making the games. If you don't have the right people, you're not going to have the right game. So as much as we invest into the game, we invest into the people. So that's very clear, very important. And that helps you to start building. I think what you need to have in your mind is, what is your plan in the coming 3 years? I mean, you don't need to have a plan for 20 years, but in 3 years' time, where you'd love to kind of go into the video game. And based on that, that's something that you can adapt your funding strategy. A very important note is, obviously, you're going to create this kind of financial document or business plan, which is kind of a strategic document of what you'd like to do with your company or with your game. But all can and all will change. So it's not because it's here that, of course, in 3 years' time, you say 3 years' time, I'm going to be there, maybe you'll be there, and that's fine. It's just that we want to see that you have a vision, you know where you want to go. And then when we talk about financing about a game, so project-wise, you cannot just go and say, oh, you know, I've got this great idea. I'm going to tell you what is this idea about, and I've got 10 lines, or I'm just talking to you 10 minutes, and you're going to buy this idea. I mean, it's over. Nobody is buying just on an idea. People will need to have a pitch deck, so a document that is detailing what is this idea about, who is this game for, market positioning. Okay, when we release this game, who is it going to be compared to? Also, videos can be videos or prototype. The best is prototype. People will invest into a game when they see what this game is about. Just a note on prototype. What is prototype? I mean, in the production, I'm sure you guys have seen that, there is what we call, let's say, a vertical slice, which is a very tiny slice of the game, which is kind of supposed to be like quality of release. And that's, you demonstrate what the game is going to be. You don't need that to find funding. I mean, this when we are talking way more earlier, it's prototype. What we want to see with prototype is, where is the fun? So that can be one gameplay mechanic, showing kind of the game loop, few elements, but what is key is, okay, we place prototype, is ugly as hell, of course, no art into it, bad animations, no sound. I mean, that's fine, But what is important is to understand how the game is fun, and how the game is going to position towards within the market of the video game market. That's too bad. I mean, maybe your game is going to be successful, and then you're going to have there is money coming back in a few months, but too bad, you didn't plan for the money. So it's very important to kind of look about what is your cash flow and when you will need money, and that you kind of secure it in advance. Same thing, if you go to see a bank and you have money on your account, they will be like, sure, we loan you money, that's fine, that's no problem. If you go to see a bank and then you have nothing on your account, they'll be like, whoa, 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 we don't trust you. So very important that you kind of take into account this way in advance rather than the last minute. The second point is the cost of money. Same thing, we don't think about that, but money is not free. Money, of course, when you take a loan in a bank, I mean, you know the interest rate, so that gives you the idea of the cost of the money. But you may, I will explain later, but you may have someone investing in your game and getting part of the revenues when the game release. Okay, how much are they going to get of the revenues? And you need to balance the cost, because you have the money right now, no interest at the moment, but then, I don't know, you have to give 10-20% of your rev share when you launch the game. Wow, that's a lot of money. So is it worth it? Or does it make more sense that I go to the bank and I take some money and I pay kind of interest rate of 3-4%? That's all this that you need to balance. Of course, the bank is never going to finance your whole game. There are all problems about getting banks, which I'm going to go through. But it's very important that when you find some sources of funding, you assess what is going to be the cost for it, because you always have to reimburse it one way or another, and you need to find the way which costs you the less in terms of reimbursement. Okay, so various sources of funding. So what I'm going to talk about here, and there may be others that you think about, and well, be happy to kind of get your question on that. But basically, that's kind of the main one I see here. So I will talk about private-public investment. I will talk about kind of linked to that what we talk project finance, so people investing into your game, versus equity, so people investing into your company. I will talk about publishers, obviously. I will talk about platforms, because platforms can bring you some, of course, they can make your game shine and be upfront in the store, but they can also, in different ways, kind of put some money upfront in the title. I will talk about friends and family, because your friends and your family, when you start, can clearly help you. And I will talk then link to that to community, obviously, and Kickstarter. And I will tell you what I think about Kickstarter. And then I'll talk about distributors and banks. I mean, banks are still here. They are not the main source, but something not to forget about. So before I do that, it's kind of, I want to kind of show you what is everyone looking for, because everyone here in this funding business is not looking for the same thing. Investors, I'm counting into investors, all they can be private, can be public, can be the banks, so all the one I mentioned before are counted in investors. I will talk about, so first, the developer. Developer, you guys, well, you need money to develop your game. You have this great idea, you want to do this great game, but hey, you don't have enough money. You need to hire 5, 10, 15, 20 people, and you cannot pay for it. You need the money. Maybe you're also like, well, you know what? I want to self-publish. This is important for me. I want to keep the IP rights. I want to make sure that I've got a direct relationship with my fans. I want to self-publish. Okay, self-publishing means marketing. You need to create a trailer, for instance. You need to kind of create an artwork. You need a logo. I mean, you need a lot of tools. And then you need to do a marketing campaign, which means, okay, buying media space, be in contact with influencers and buying influencers, do PR. Okay, hey, I don't have the money for that. I need the money for that. So that's kind of your key needs in terms of developer. And of course, one that I didn't put here is also you need to run a company. You have your company, you want the company to continue running, so you need money for that. Okay, as a publisher, it's a total different view. I need a project. Why do I need a game? Well, I need a game because I have a lineup. I have a portfolio of titles. You know, I need to, in order to make my business, I need to release about 10, 15, 20 games a year. Okay, I have already a shooter game, so I'm fine. I don't want another shooter game. But I don't know, maybe I want an RPG and I don't have RPG. Or maybe I want a stealth game, I don't have stealth games. So I'm like, okay, I'm looking around what is good, what exists, and what kind of make sure that I balance very well my portfolio and have a lineup management. Of course, for this year and the following year and so on and so forth. So I don't have exactly the same strategy as you have as a developer, because you may have a great RPG game, but I'm like, I'm sorry guys, I already have RPG segment covered. I'm not looking for another title. Also, my goal as a publisher is to reduce my risk. Signing with a developer, if it's a small developer, the risk is even higher. I mean, the risk is that, okay, I pay you milestone every month, sorry. I give you money, and at the end, you don't finish the game. And then, sorry for my language, but I'm fucked. You know, I put all this money in, and then there is no project. Whoa, that's very problematic. So more and more, the publisher, they want to enter as late as possible. So they want to see a game which is well advanced. So of course, if your game is already in beta stage, publisher will be like, oh, that's great. Because beta, you've kind of put all the investment up front. You've kind of almost, the game is not finished, but almost, we can kind of tweak it, make it a bit, but it's a very small investment, very small risk. And it seems that the game is going to release. There is no much doubt about it. Of course, if it's not beta, I can come at alpha, or I can come more and more at, publisher will look at coming at vertical slice, the one I was talking about, which is I've got a slice of the full game, very tiny slice, but I can see the quality, and it's also show me that you guys are well organized to be able to put together, even if it's a tiny space, tiny bit, you've been able to put this tiny bit of the game very well. Of course, as you grow, as a publisher, I want to invest in recognized team, because recognized team, it's easier to sell the game. People are recognized, so they have a brand and they have fans following them. So obviously I can be like, okay, then, you know, people are going to have more chance to buy that game. And as a publisher, they may also think, I mean, you've seen that a lot lately. There's been a lot of M&A, merger and acquisition. So a publisher may think, okay, I work with this studio first, but this is also because I want to acquire the studio. So that can be so. On the investor side, what do I want? I mean, if I put money in video game as an investor, let's be honest, it's to make money. Okay, I like video game, but it's to make money. An important note here is there are investors and investors, meaning, you know, there are investors that are used to invest in any sector, and they don't really come to video game, because video game is kind of very specific. It's a creative business. As a creative business like movie or like music, it's a different way to manage it, because it's a lot about managing people, it's a lot about managing ideas. And so I will advise that it's more investors that are used or know the video game market that are the most interesting to go with. However, as an investor, I'm here to make money. This is the goal. First goal is make money. So they want to maximize their investment. And what they want to do is exit fast. So as soon as the game is released, how much time for me to make back my money? If I take shares in your company, how many years I need to kind of sell the company back at a higher price to make even more money? So keep in mind that this is always what they have in mind. Also, they want to limit their risk. If I put money into your game and the game doesn't release, okay, how do I make sure that I've got some security? Is it like because you're going to have a personal guarantee? Is it because I'm going to have equity in the company? I mean, all this, they're not here to lose money. They're here to make money. And if there is a risk, they want to make sure that they have way out if something is going bad. And also, they want visibility for future investments, because if they have a successful investment, you know, the way they work, especially those funds, is about people putting money in the fund. So if they are successful with a few titles, they're going to have more money put in the fund, then more money, and able to invest even more. Okay, the timeline. Timeline is very important. I'm going to go through all of those different fun ways, one after the other. But before I do, I want to kind of put them in timeline. I mean, there are stuff that you can do early stages, and you can still do actually later on, but the vice versa is not true. I mean, it's going to be very difficult to find a company, an investor investing into your company when you are in the early days. You just start. We don't know what your team is capable of. We don't know what kind of game you're going to release, and if it's going to be successful. So nobody is going to invest into that. How does it start? Is love money. I'm going to explain this right after, but love money is friends and family. That's the first people that are going to believe in you and are going to kind of put money. And then, of course, there are public funds. So again, I will go through that, but that's public money that are really here to kind of initiate projects and can be useful, which obviously means you can still have public fund later on. After your first game, after several games, there's still something that can come on. Distributor and platforms, they do actually, they may come even early, even after your first project, even if you didn't release any game before. Platform may be interested to see, oh, okay, that's an interesting title. Can I put money up front? I'm thinking like, let's say VR, for instance. Oculus has been doing that a lot. Sony is doing that. Xbox with ID at Xbox may be doing that. So for small amount of money, but which are very early kind of stage and help you to kind of start your project. And banks, I put only, didn't put any S here, it's interesting. Anyway, banks at early days that can come, but banks will come one-to-one. I mean, you have $100, they will come $100, but they're not going to take that much risk. And what is interesting is after you grow, the more and more you can reach to kind of other sorts of finance, project finance, community are some of them. And equity, as I mentioned, when you're kind of bigger. So let's look at those one by one. Love money. So who are they? Well, love money is your money. So kind of when you start a project, it starts with your resources and your money, your family and your friends. This is the key. I mean, if you don't put money, if you don't put resources, that means you don't believe in your project. If you don't believe in your project, why do you want me to believe in your project? No way. So that's very important to show to any investment, any fund, public, private, that yes, I believe in my project, I have started, I'm already like, maybe I'm alone, but look, I've already done this. So I've got a concept phase in my game, I have a first prototype I can show you, so I'm moving on. Or, hey, look, we are already 3, 4, 5 together. Yeah, we don't pay ourselves right away, but you know, we are already starting the company, it's moving. It's not like, oh, I'm coming with an idea and I need you to finance before I start. No way, that's not going to work. What do they bring? So, well, of course, the money to start, the money to kind of, like I was saying, to build a prototype, to finance the concept phase. So this is a very important money because that's the money at the beginning, really beginning. I'm going to make a good point here on Kickstarter and all the Kickstarter or all this kind of funding platforms. People usually, and a lot are when they start, they kind of create a project on Kickstarter and be like, okay, call their friends and family and get everyone to kind of invest into the project. I think it's a bad use of your money. I tell you why. The thing is, if nobody knows you, I mean, you're not going, I mean, nobody that doesn't know you is going to invest in this project. It's mainly going to be your family, your friends that are going to invest. Great. However, you know them. So Kickstarter or not Kickstarter, you can convince them to invest into your project because you know them. You have in direct contact with them, either directly or friends of friends, but you can find a way to get them. I don't know, you organize a party, organize a drink to present your project, but you have a way to be in direct contact. When you go to Kickstarter platforms, those guys are going to take 15 to 20% as a rev share, as a commission on the money that they're going to get on the platform. Why do you want to use those 15-20% money when actually you know the people giving the money? Get the people to give the money directly to you without losing this part of the platform. Those platforms are very useful, but later on, and for me, they are much more kind of marketing platforms rather than financing platforms, even if they present themselves as financing platforms. Sorry, I'm just going to grab some water. I cannot see. I hope people are still here. We'll see if at the end of the presentation I finish alone. Public funds. So public money, same thing. I put it here because it's interesting money to get early on. Again, you can have it later throughout the projects, but early on, that's money you can get. So you can get where you can get it. You can get from the States, and you have a lot of local regions, aids, especially, I mean, especially in Spain, being like, well, the one I know in like Catalonia has some support. Obviously in Madrid, there is some support. In Valencia, there is some support. So you can find a lot of them. And then you have media, which is the European Fund. Actually, I didn't present it before, but I'm part of the Commission of Media, where I kind of analyze projects. And the way it works is Europe is putting money. When we say Europe, is actually the countries are putting money into different sectors, and one is video game. And as such, you can apply to media. There is a commission of experts, which I'm part of. We are kind of reviewing those projects, but that can be either very early on, you need kind of money for concepts and pre-production, and or that can be later on, you're kind of achieving your pre-production and need to go in production. Of course, the amounts are not the same, but you can get money as these different stages. And what we see is a lot of kind of young companies, small companies, and that's purely subsidiaries. You don't have to reimburse. So that's kind of money that's, I mean, you have both. You have some part with subsidiaries and sometimes some part of that, or loan. Subsidiaries you don't have to reimburse, and loans you have to reimburse, but obviously there is no interest rate. So what is interesting is those guys, not only media, but states, Spain, or local regions, are bringing you money at a stage where you don't have enough to build a trust with other partners, and they are bringing you money where either it's free because it's subsidiaries, or you have to reimburse, but you have no interest rate. And again, remember what I put at the beginning, cost of money is very important. So what does it bring? Subsidiaries or loan? That's what I said. They can be funds for the company or funds for the project, one or the other. And that's something that you can really do early on, again, concept phase, or kind of beginning of production phase, as I was mentioning. Free money or very low interest rate or no interest rate, which is good. And that's also very important because if you convince media, if you convince Madrid region, or if you convince Spanish state to bring money into your company or into the project, you're building trust. And when you go to see a bank, you're like, hey, look, media already gave me 200,000 euros. So, you know, can you give me 100,000? As a bank, start to trust you. And not only banks, same thing for investors. It means that, you know, your project has been seen by some experts, and experts thought that you had a good project, and that's why they provide you with the money. And also that's important because that's a way you can build relationship with those guys and come back. Let's say you did a project with media, this has been successful, you reimburse your money, everybody's happy. Next time you go, it's like, okay, those guys have a great track record with us, no problem, we will give them those kind of few €100,000 to put in their next project. So that can be a very interesting, of course, it's not going to finance all your game, that's just part of it, but still very interesting to bring money at a low cost in your project. Publishers, who are they? Well, you know them, so I'm not going to list them. If you don't, I mean, we can talk about it. And what is interesting is to say that it's publishers with an S, because there are several of them, but also because they all have a different strategy. And so what is very important is for you to kind of look out what kind of games they've been publishing in the past, and understand which one can be the best match with what you are doing. It's pointless to go to see a publisher that has a strategy that doesn't seem at all close to what you are doing. Like I would take, I don't know, as an example coming to my mind, I mean, I'm sure you all know EA, Electronic Arts. Of course, there is EA, which is doing like those big AAA games that you all know about. But they also have EA partners that's kind of dealing with kind of smaller projects. Okay, so it's how to kind of also reach within an organization the right people for the project that you are pitching. You have publishers that will invest into games up to 1-2 million. If you go to see them with a 10 million games, you will have, sorry, very interesting, not for us. So you have to kind of learn, build relationship with those guys to kind of understand who is looking for what and what kind of budget they can put in any game. They bring the investment, of course, they can bring the investment with milestone payment, as I was telling you, but not only, obviously they bring the marketing, the QA, the localization, the distribution, they bring a lot more that has to be put into the big scheme. And as I was presenting at the beginning, don't forget that funding is only one part of the big scheme. One thing to think about as well is it's not only, they don't have to bring the full money. They can also bring part of the money. We can be talking about kind of co-publishing deals where, well, I don't know, because you have some money, or I mean, let's say you've started to develop the game. So when you start to develop the game for 6 months, 9 months, a year. Of course, this has a cost, you know, cost that you supported because of love money, because of bank, because of public subsidiaries, because of all these things. And there are different ways. One way you can say to the publisher, look, I've already spent $500,000. Guys, this is included in the budget, you pay me back the $500,000. Or it can be also, I spent $500,000, you know, why we don't kind of co-publish? You're going to spend 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, whatever. I spend half at the end I spend $500,000, you give me your 2 million, that's 2.5. When we launch the game, boom, 1/5 of the revenues are going straight to me because that was my initial investment. So that's kind of also can be this kind of deals. I mean, we can be very, very creative in the kind of deals that we put together with any kind of funding partner. When the publisher is coming in, as I was mentioning, and you need to have a pitch, you need to have a prototype, trailer, yes or no, but at least a prototype. I would advise you to make a video out of your prototype, something that they can understand the game, they can understand how the game is different, and they can play the game and see the fun of it. If you don't have that, too early, don't go to see publishers. Well, key is the game, the team, and the relationship. As I was mentioning, I think it's clear. Game, team. Relationship is something you build. I mean, a lot of publishers, I don't know, I mean, I made a conference a few months ago with Game Lab, and there was various publishers like Team 17 in the UK, for instance, or Devolver. And what they were all saying, which was interesting, was like, they want to build a relationship. So they are happy for you to start discussion with them, even if you're, I mean, which is kind of contradicting what I just said, but even if you're early on in your project, if you're not ready to pitch, but to kind of know them better. And that's aligned with what I said at the beginning, you need to understand kind of the strategy. So create this relationship to understand the strategy, because of course, you're not going to find on internet like, oh yeah, okay, Devolver strategy is to do this and this. You can find it by the portfolio of titles they have, and also by starting to meet them, starting to have discussions with them. Then they know you. They know also your strategy and what you want to do. And when you go to see them again to present them a project, like, oh yeah, we know each other. It seems that it's aligned with what we want to do, and you have much more chance to kind of sign your title. That's what I say here. Partner will vary depending on type of game, size of the game. And you can meet those guys for trade show. Difficult at the moment, obviously, because of COVID. So not really trade shows happening. But we hope it's all going to be finished soon. So that's going to happen again. So that's a great way to meet people. Direct contact. I mean, those guys right now, because there is no more trade shows, are taking a lot of video call and are talking a lot with developers. So don't hesitate to kind of contact them directly on your project. And then you have agents. You have a few agents in video games that you can appoint, and they can put you in contact or manage a relationship with those publishers or even with investors. I mean, the issue is obviously agent is taking a percentage, a share on the cut, but usually they take money when the project is signed. So they work for you, and when you sign, give them money. It's not as good as if you sign by yourself, but it's better than not signing. So that's still pretty interesting. Platforms, same thing. Who are they? You know them, you know all the platforms. I'm sure, I'm just saying here, you need to think very wide. Of course, they can be, I mentioned ID at Xbox. It can be PlayStation, that can be kind of supporting a release of a project. That can be Steam, that can be Epic. So, but you have all the streaming services, you have all the digital platforms, you have the mobile operators. I'm thinking like, because there have been several deals like Orange, I don't know if you, well, French guys, but they are also everywhere in Europe. Those guys typically are also buying into games because they want to kind of have a special offer on their platform. When I'm talking about streaming services, you can be like Stadia. I'm sure you've seen Amazon launching their new platform. It was announced 3 days ago. So you have a lot of different services happening right now. Start to have communication with those guys. Those guys need content. Content is king. They need to dissociate themselves from one to the other because of content, and that's what you're bringing. So if you're bringing good content, those guys will be interested to discuss with you, and obviously to finance the game, either full finance, why not, for an exclusivity, which can be permanent exclusivity or temporary exclusivity, or just partial finance, but still, it's still good and still part of it. Just about temporary exclusivity, that can be, okay, I don't know, I'm Xbox, I'm giving you X amount of money, and therefore, because of that, you will stay 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, whatever, exclusive to my platform. After that, you can go to the other platforms. So obviously that's kind of cutting your initial revenue, because you're going to make less revenue, let's say in my case on PS4, because you were on Xbox first, and PS4 is just going to come later on. But you're going to have upfront money from Xbox to kind of invest into your game, finance into your game, and that's money that you don't have to give back. You know, in a way, that's kind of investment just for the exclusivity. So that's kind of interesting to me. When you go to see them, same stage as for the publishers. When you have some material, you can kind of show them. Banks. Banks, well, who are they? You know them. Same thing. I'm not going to list all the banks here. The thing is, so usually we don't include banks because our banks, you know, they don't take risk, and they don't know anything about video games. So why you mention banks? They don't take risk, that's true. So it's just about the complement, but they know how to finance it. They know how to finance offices. They know how to finance tech. And if you have a well enough established company, they will help you with that. Also, they can be good partners for short-term cash issues. The example I was taking, you know, you release a game, you have a rev share, you're going to make money when the game releases, but of course, games release in, I don't know, in September, you know, the time that people go to buy it on the platform, that the platform pay you back or pay the publisher, and then the publisher send you a royalty report that you invoice, that's 3 months. And then we are in December. What do you do during those 3 months? You need money. And that's typically where potentially, if you're sure of the revenue coming after, or pretty sure about it, where a bank can help you to kind of manage cash flow. But again, that's something that you need to plan well in advance. I'm referring to my slide up front about timing, which is key. So at all stage, they are not key. I mean, they are not big way to fund your game, but still, you know, a way that makes sense, especially at the moment where they are very kind of low rates. So that would be pity not to use them. Again, think cost of money. That can be a low cost, so interesting. Project finance. Sorry. Who are the project finance? Partner. So they are an investor that comes to invest only into the games. They don't invest into the company, they invest into the games. They are not a publisher. So they are expecting that either you self-publish or you find a publisher, or you find a distributor. They are just here to say, okay, you need money for your game. You cannot finance your game. I'm coming here and I'm putting the extra money needed. I put just 2 examples, but there are much more people like Carlo Knight or Games here. So they can bring the full money or the partial money. How do they make money? They make money at release. So let's say I invest in the game. I put 50% of the budget of the game. When the game release, well, I'm getting 50% or a bit more because I was like, you know, I took a bit more risk kind of than you. So I would take maybe 55%. And what they're planning, so they are mainly people who knows about video game industry, and they are planning that your game is great. So there is good chance that it's going to be successful. And of course, if I put 50% and then your game is a huge success, you know, I would make a lot of money. That's kind of what they're looking for. But they're also looking for security. If your game is not a success, if you are not able to finish your game, if you close your company before, I put those 50%, I want my money back one way or another. Different ways can be personal guarantee, which is like how you avoid this at all cost. And actually banks may ask you the same thing. So you don't want to be personally in charge of reimbursing it, because you know, we may talk about a lot of money, and if you cannot pay back, what do? They're going to come and take your house. You want to avoid that, so be very careful with that. But that can also be equity. Okay, your game does not perform, I'm taking like 30%, 40% shares of your company, which is that, that means, you know, that's not my company anymore. I'm not alone in my company. So that's all this that you have to take into account. Again, when those guys are coming in, they are coming in the same stage as a publisher, and you need kind of the same kind of pitching material as you need for publishing. Equity investment. So there are investors coming into your company, but taking shares. Here I put a list. So I put venture capitalists because it can be venture capitalists, but let's be honest, venture capitalists are going to come more when talking about $1 million. They're going to put from $1 million upfront, from 1 million euros to much more. And then obviously there are large companies. I mean, the last one, obviously, I'm sure you've seen the latest acquisition of Microsoft. Okay, that's merger and acquisition. They come, so they did a full buyout, a full acquisition, but that can be also a minority stake. And very often it more happens like this. It come like you have a big partner in video games coming in and be like, okay, guys, your game seems interesting. Either they kind of invest or publish one of your game, and they're like, okay, maybe I would take 20% of your company. So you need to, there's always a big question about, you need to value your company. What is the value of your company? And that's always very complicated. And I think I can spend just 1 hour on that, but this is usually based on, you know, previous kind of revenues you made, but also what are your plans for the future? And again, I'm relating to the business plan and what I was mentioning at the beginning with your 3-year strategy. If you can show and build a very strong story about where you want to go in the coming 3 years, those guys will be way more willing to kind of take some shares and buy some shares of your company. And it's very rare that they come early on. I mean, they may come early on if, I don't know, you create a company and you were before one big creative director in, I don't know, in one huge studio, or you have a kind of big track record. But if you're a young developer, those guys are not going to come. And that's kind of why I put this in timeline. They're more coming later. So they're more investing in companies with pedigree, with a strong pedigree. And there is obviously the question here was, okay, do you want to lose control of your company? You want to have someone coming in, bringing money for sure, but then being able to kind of dictate what the company is going to do, what are going to be the company next project. So that's kind of a balance and a choice you have to make when you are in this kind of position. And that's basically what my key message here is. Funding, it's always, I mean, of course you need great project, great team and all that, but when money is coming, it's always a balance about, okay, what do I have to give away for this money? Communities. So you're going to tell me why communities are coming so late. I mean, this is kind of what I was mentioning about Kickstarter. So that's kind of thing that it's you cannot start there. For one reason, I mean, to have a community, I mean, you need to have fans. If you haven't released any game, how are you going to have fans? Again, yes, you are a famous game creator from another company and you create a new company, that may work, but you're just starting, difficult. They can bring early finance. That's kind of the Kickstarter we are mentioning, which in this context of, okay, I'm a known person. I'm thinking about, I'm sure you've seen that in the past, Tim Schafer, before his company was acquired by Microsoft. He did a Kickstarter, and I don't remember the exact number, he raised 1 or 2 million or 3 million. Okay, that's Tim Schafer. He has a long history in video game. People are really ready to back him up. But otherwise, I will not take it early on. Now that can be later. That can be more like, you have your game, you develop your game by yourself, you have something which is good, but you still want to improve. So you go to early access, and early access is a kind of way to kind of activate your communities and start to get money in, even if your game is not totally finished. What I put here, it's more a marketing tool. I mean, except very rare cases, like the one I mentioned about Tim Schafer. Sorry, most of the cases, we really use this as a marketing tool in order to kind of get people to know about the game, get people to try about the game, and get people to be prepared to buy the full game when it's released. There is a big risk, and I see that a lot with small developer. It's kind of, let's say, small developer that goes into either early access or Kickstarter campaign and convince people beyond, obviously, their friends and family. So people start to invest into the game. And then they have, I don't know, they reach 20% of the budget, but they don't have the whole budget for the game. And they don't succeed to get the rest of the budget elsewhere. Therefore, they cannot finish the game. They cannot finish the games. They don't reimburse those people that were their early backers. This is a catastrophe because obviously, when you want to create a new company, you want to work again into games, those guys will remember you and be like, okay, I put $20 or 20 euros in his project when it was early on. This guy closed the company, never finished the game, and I've lost this money. And that's going to go on the social, bad reputation, and very difficult for you to kind of build up your image and your career, because it's a big world, but it's also a small world. I mean, people will really remember if you release bad titles, bad games, or if you did bad things to them. I'm almost there, almost in 1 hour, not bad. So the question is that it? There is no other way? No. I will mention here 2 other routes to keep your studio growing that you should not forget about. Work for hire. I mean, clearly, if you have a great team of, I don't know, of coders, so there is different type of work for hire. That can be like you have a great team of coders. Of course, you also have designers, you have artists, you have animators, and you're working on your own project. That's very important. Okay, you don't have money, so you need money. What can you do? It's also, you can kind of do work for hire. It can be only, I don't know, a few coders that you are proposing to another studio as outsourcing that can help to finish one of their projects. Okay, that's not great. That's going to reduce your resources to do your own game. So that's going to take longer, but hey, that's kind of money coming in. And that can be good money coming in every month to kind of finance the rest of the project. That can also be a work for hire for a whole project. I mean, you have one of those big brands. I mean, I was mentioning Disney at the time. That can be it. Okay, Disney release a new movie. We need a game for it. We don't have the resources in-house. We don't have the people for that. Okay, we are looking at developers and who could be kind of developing a game for us. That can be good money because obviously we are paying. I mean, Disney would be in this case paying upfront, paying every month. So you can include your margin in your monthly revenues, which means that it's very low risk because you're going to sign a contract for 2 years, 3 years, or maybe 2 years development, get all this money, and your company is secure for those 2 years. So that's something not to forget about. And I was mentioning Disney big companies, but that can be way, 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 way smaller project as well. That can be, series game. Maybe you don't want to go in series game, but that's again, I'm trying to find ways here when you start to get money coming into your company to help you to do other projects. And another thing is co-publishing. You can also be working with an existing studio. You can, I would take one example that we did at Tequila Works, which is Sexy Brutale. Maybe you've seen this game, game coming from Cavalier Game Studios, studio based in the UK. They had this game. It was a stage which called White Box. I'm sure you guys know what a white box is. So it was very early stage build. The gameplay was fun, but the game looks really bad, really ugly. They went around, looked for publishers, didn't find any publishers. So we were kind of stuck. And so that's a time where they contact Tequila Works and like, oh, this is game. What do you think? Who do you think can work with us? And that's where we kind of say, oh, that's an interesting concept. We are going into self-publishing. Why we don't work together? You guys bring the game, the gameplay elements, the design. We are going to bring, obviously, all the art, all the animation. We're going to help you with the design to make sure it's well balanced. And then we're going to bring all the publishing side. And that's kind of the way we've been kind of sharing dev costs and resources. And obviously, then we kind of share revenue. But that's been kind of pretty successful title. I think I'm done. I just missed one slide. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back because I feel like I missed one slide. Yeah, I want to say one more thing. Distributors. I think I passed on this slide. Sorry. So I'm going back to that. Distributors. This is not a big part of the funding, but that's still an important one. Why? Because you have physical distributors. Guess what? There are still some physical games. It's not only digital. And especially they are like, well, I'm sure you guys know about kind of all those special editions that are working very well, high priced and working very well. Also, you may want to sell your game in other territories. Like, I don't know, I'm thinking like, I mentioned here Asia because, okay, you're based in Europe. How are you going to sell your game in China? This is a very, very specific market. If you're not there, you're not going to be able to do it. Even digitally, actually. Same thing for, I don't know, Korea, Japan. All of those territories you don't know. And so it's better you work with a local partner that can sell your game there. So they can either be your publishing partner or being your distributor. What do they bring? They bring the local distribution, they bring the publishing, but they may also bring an MG, minimum guarantee. So which is before you release your game, they're going to say, okay, I guess I can sell X units of these games. That's going to bring, you do a P&L, profit and loss. So I can sell, I don't know, let's say I can sell 20,000 units of your game. Your game is going to be at $30, $30. I'm making $10 per game, $10 times 20. Okay, that's 200. I'm sure I'm going to make 200 because I trust in the game. I'm going to give you right away 50K, 50,000 or dollars. So that's not going to finance your whole game, but that's a way to already also another source to get kind of some money. And that can go up to 10 or 15% of your whole budget. This is obviously something that comes later. Those guys need to see the game, so we're not more talking when we are an alpha or a beta stage. Well, I think that's kind of what I was mentioning. I mean, it's great. And I hope it's not going to be the case. I hope they're going to have enough money and they're going to finish the game. But when I'm seeing this kind of finance mode, I'm always worried that those guys are not going to be able to finish the game. That's kind of what I was saying about the kind of the Kickstarter, which is what happens if they cannot finish the game, if they can never release a game, or if they release a game in a very poor quality. What are all those guys going to say? They're going to hate them. And the next day they want to kind of release another game. That's going to be very difficult for them. So I think it's a great way, and that's why I'm mentioning it's a marketing tool, because that's a great way to get communities involved. And obviously, if I put $10, $20 in the game, I will be way more involved than just clicking a like on Facebook. So I got those guys involved. That's great, but that's not enough. And that should be only part of the global funding plan. I think maybe one thing that I should have mentioned more is there is not one single way of funding. I was mentioning all those ways because you can combine them. I mean, you may not have to all of them at once, but you can have 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, you should look at different ways of funding. And there are always kind of new ways of funding video games, which is great. You need to be aware of it, and you need to kind of think, okay, this is not going to be my only way. This is going to be complementary. I think the main difference to start with is whether you want to self-publish your game or not. And I'm saying that because self-publishing can be a way where you want to kind of grow your own company. So when you go through a publisher and you sell a game to the publisher, there is a single way, which is it's only one source. The publisher is paying for everything. And that's kind of the traditional way, what everybody used to do. But when you do that, you give everything to the publisher. If you are more advanced, more recognized, you can still negotiate with them, but most of the case, you can give everything to them. And then there is up to the way where, okay, I want to build my company. I want to keep my IP. I want to kind of self-publish. And this is when you're going to, and this is kind of a journey. You may have to start with, as I say, work for hire or traditional publishing because hey, you need to start, you need to have money. So you start there, but it's like, how do I go to kind of a mode where I'm keeping my IP? Let's be honest, what is going to be the value? I was mentioning about the value of the company, of your value. Yes, the value of your company is going to be two things. Clearly, if we try to summarize, is going to be your community, your fan. I'm releasing a game and I know that I've got 10 million people that are going to follow me. That's the value. And your IP. If you create a game, but the brand is not yours, what is the value? And of course, yeah. So that's the two main things. Sorry, I was mentioning the third one, which is a team, but that's it's not a side value. It's an important element. But that's something that when people are going to code, they're going to look first at the IP and the community. So what I'm saying is, and I don't know if I'm answering the question, but as more you go, the more you're going to diverse your way of financing. So you will start with love money, no choice, you start that. You may have a bit of banks, so that's kind of 2, and public funding, that's kind of 3, and that's it. And then you may go to a publishing deal, which is only the publisher. And then as you go towards more self-publishing and grow, yes, you will go for Kickstarter and communities because you will have communities. You will go for distributor deal. You will go for platform deals because they know you as well. So you will have a bit of all that. But the share of each of them is going really to depend from one project to the other. So it's very difficult to, I put distributor like 10, 15%. I can say that bank are going to come mostly onto the company and not the project level. And that's going to be very low, maybe 5%. Project funding, maybe like the project investors, maybe like the whole project. So that may be 100%, that may be 50%. So there is no kind of a single rule which is like, okay, this one is like 5%, this one is 10%. Really depends on where you are in kind of the life of your company and also which kind of project we're talking about. Before we launch, not sure. I mean, the way where we can say paying back is, it can pay you back as a developer. So if you sign with a publisher, if you sign with a platform, those guys may pay the whole development. So when you launch, everything has been paid in terms of your cost, your own cost. Now, it doesn't mean that the game pay back for them, but for you, that's done. Your risk is limited. What I would say, which is very important in this case, is how you negotiate a rev share. So that's, because the risk is you develop the game for them. They pay you a nice man-months fee. Great. So you secure, everything is done. The game launch, it's a huge success. You have no rev share. Yeah, of course you can go, oh, this is my game. Great. But look, it sells millions. And because in your deal, you didn't plan any rev share, boom, nothing for you. You stay with your man-month. So that's the thing. It's maybe interesting to, if you trust in yourself, to kind of be like, okay, maybe my man-months is lower. Maybe I put some initial money, but I want to make sure that I've got a rev share after because I want to, I want to be part of the success. Now, just to the point before about pre-launch, yeah, involving the community is very important. And for one thing as well, maybe it's more difficult when you just start, but you can do it later on. You usually have, I'm thinking about a game I cannot mention, but I'm working on a sequel. What is interesting is you have fans from the first iteration. Having fans from the first iteration means that you have guys that knows very well your IP, very well your game. So you can leverage them for your sequel, but you can also talk with them about what they'd like to see in the game. So they can also help you in terms of game content, what can work. And that's kind of because you know when we are in big publishers, big studios, we do user tests and all that kind of things. That's very costly, so you may not be able to afford to do those user tests. But talking with your fans is a way to have direct feedback that you can implement into your next game as well. I don't know. There may be. I'm sure they are. I will not advise you to do that. I think we try to create the link kind of, you know, with a developer. So we want to see you talking about your project. So it's not so, I mean, it's a lot of paperwork, so that's true, but that's, I think, useful paperwork, because it's not like stuff about, okay, what is the address of your company, your phone number, you know, DNI, whatever, which is boring. I mean, of course, they ask a bit of that, but a lot of it is clearly about this. Explain me what is your project. And that's work you need to do anyway. Whether you go to media or any investors, you need to be able to explain me, okay, what is your pitch in 2 lines? What is your concept? You need to have a budget. We need to see a budget. If you don't have a budget, if you don't have a production timeline, I mean, you cannot talk to anyone. So I think what media or other public funding are looking for is exactly what you need elsewhere. So I will really advise you to do it yourself, rather than trying to go through an agency, which I think most of the cases don't know anything about video games. They may know very well Europe, but not video games, and cannot explain the best way as possible for game. I can tell what is interesting is media, you know, they are, they are administrative people. They don't know about video games, and that's why they call us, you know, but what is interesting is they call experts. So we are the one, they don't have to follow what we say. They can do else differently, but in most of the cases, you know, they don't know anything about the game. They ask expert are telling them something, and usually they follow it. One thing I want to also just finish on media, which is important, is the money that is, this is European money. I mean, European money is actually state money. So that means that Spain every year is putting money into media. If Spanish companies don't go to apply to media, this Spanish money is going to go to other countries, being like, I don't know, Germany, France company, French company, British, not British anymore, but Dutch or whatsoever. So the Spanish government is really, really keen of having, you know, Spanish companies to apply for that, because they're like, okay, we put money there, we want this money to come back to our companies and not to go to other companies in other territories. I can tell you, I mean, I'm not in Spain, but in France, I was in charge of actually, I don't know how to call it, but like, it was half financed by all the publishers, the French developers, and half by the government. And the goal was, and typically the government was asking me to kind of go to see the local entities and be like, guys, please get this money. So, you know, there is clearly, and I'm sure there is the same will in Spain. That depends, you know, how senior is the team. I mean, usually you look at their background, you know, where they've been working before, have they been working together? Because that's also, you may have people who have great background, but they never work together. So that's the main risk, is that people don't work together anymore, and that's going to implode. So you really have to kind of avoid this. So that's the main thing. Now, in terms of the project, that's very difficult. That's about knowing the market, knowing the trends in the market, and where you see that there is a potential. That's also about the size of the title. If you see a team of 5 people who want to do a 5 million game, like, oh, that's not going to work. And they're going to say, oh yeah, I can outsource. Sure, you can outsource, but you don't want to, I mean, you can outsource a bit, but you don't want to outsource the main thing. That's another key point. You need to make sure that the key bits of the game are developed in-house. And that it doesn't pay, because outsourcing is put you at risk as well. The outsourcing company may close, they may do a bad job. So that's very important, that as much as possible stuff are kept inside. So it's about knowing the market and making sure, I would say, more than anything else, that the team is working well together. That's the most risk I see, is team that you know, get to fight between each other, and then it's badly organized, no more production. So I don't know, it depends what we call a successful game. So if you put a couple of €1,000 and you make 100,000, I will consider it as a success, you know, because that's a huge multiplier. Now, if you want to make a multi-million game success with a couple of thousand, that's not going to work. Clearly, there is kind of quality element. I mean, you cannot fight, but that's why it's kind of a step by step. It's like, yes, start small, make a small game that is kind of recognized on maybe on Steam. Just do PC, don't do console. I mean, as soon as you bring new platform, there is a lot of new constraints. I mean, dev kit, I'm sure you guys know dev kits and all that kind of stuff, which are going to complexify everything, also in terms of QA. So I would say, make a good game, make a small game. I mean, what I see a lot is, yeah, I'm making like 20 hours game, yeah, great, with a small budget, and then it's full of bugs. It's better to have a very small experience, very nice, and no bugs, working very well. Just one platform, and you release it. You can even release it for free. I mean, if it's a couple of thousand, release it for free and start to see that you have an appeal. And maybe it's only 5,000 people, 10,000 people playing your game. That's great, that's great. You start there. And then maybe you release an update, an upgrade that you sell, and you grow from that. So I think, yes, success is relative to what you're looking for. But I mean, now it's a bit old, I would say, because they released in 2012. I would take Cybo. I mean, Cybo, you know, is two guys releasing one mobile game, a runner. They did a pretty simple game, but they did very well, very qualitative. And they've been able to kind of take the market. And, you know, I mean, now they're a bit more, but they were kind of 40 people. It's not like they are a huge company for, I mean, I cannot disclose the revenue, but for massive revenues.
If you would share.
Okay,
thank you.
So I guess I will start with kind of production. So when you start, you have an idea. Okay, I don't know, I want to make, I was a runner, I want to make a runner game. Okay, great. Okay, how is this game going to work? So maybe there is one character. I mean, you're kind of building your idea and starting to define a bit of the game design. And what we call before you go to a game design document, that's what we call a GDD, you start with, yeah, the design idea. And so you build what we call a pitch deck, which is a PowerPoint, which is going to explain, okay, who you are, the team, who you are, where you're coming from, what was your previous experience, what kind of game you want to do, what is the genre of the game, what is the key concept of the game, what is the story of the game, what is the design of the game, and also like what is the budget for this game. I mean, it's going to take you 2 months, 6 months, 10 months, whatever months, and that many people. And who are those people? Are you going to need an artist? How many coders? How many animators? Do you need QA? Outsourcing. So all this, you put all this kind of in a document, and that's kind of what we call the pitch deck. So when you go to see an investor or a publisher, you can explain clearly what is your game, like who you are, what is your game, and what is kind of the cost of the game. And I was mentioning positioning is also, how do you see your game compared to other games in the market? So again, as an investor or publisher, I can be like, okay, you think that this is a competitor to Jone, for instance, or Grace. I'm like, okay, so I know those games sold that much units. Okay, you may not be able to achieve this success, but still, you know, there is a market for that, and I can assess what is the size of the market. Then, in terms of development, you start developing your game, and this is where we have prototypes. So prototypes may be, okay, I want to do a runner. It's just maybe like 2 minutes gameplay footage where I just see someone running and jumping. Very basic, but that's kind of what you can start to share. Because again, people don't want to invest just on a piece of paper. They want to invest in, you know, something tangible. And prototypes is, even if it's just very first step, a few minutes, but it's already showing that you are really developing for real, that it's working. At least there can be 2 minutes of gameplay without too many bugs. So that's good. I can help build the trust. And then after that, you have several prototypes, you start your development, and usually can be at the end of your pre-production, you come with what we call a vertical slice, which can be like, let's say 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes of the game. So it's like the full version of the game, but just 10 minutes. And this should be like the quality of your final game. The beauty of that is obviously you should be able to convince everyone with this. Of course, you try to convince people before because it has a cost to do the vertical slice. You know, you still need to do, I don't know, 6, 9 months pre-production, it has a cost. But it can also be helpful for, I don't know, we are talking about distributors, you know, for other partners that come later in the process. There's like, oh, look, there is a vertical slice. The game is going to look that beautiful. Of course, it's going to last, I don't know, 10 hours. You just have 10 minutes, but you can see all the gameplay mechanics, all the game loop, and how it looks like. Now, meet to match, to answer the question on meet to match. This is great system. That's kind of a platform where you need to subscribe. I mean, there are a lot of them, so cost may vary, but usually it's a very affordable cost. You subscribe, and you have a lot of publishers, investors coming. So it can be either physical. I mean, usually do physical, they do it in Madrid, they do it in Barcelona. I guess now the last one was kind of digital. And so you have like kind of slots of 30 minutes, and you have kind of 30 minutes to present your project. So that's where you're going to present your pitch, and you have 30 minutes. So that's 30 minutes, and then you're out. So not much time. But that's where you present your game, who you are, your game, your pitch, and honestly, you don't have time to play a game. So that's kind of where I advise you present a trailer, a video of your game within your presentation. And then, if they like it, that's the beginning of the conversation to go further. Everyone.
Goodbye, guys. Thank you so much.